Most people aren't stuck because they are lazy. They are stuck because they are trying to do too much at once. More goals, more habits, more advice, and somehow less progress. In this video, I'll show you why doing less is often the fastest way forward and how to focus on what actually matters. Doing more often feels like the responsible thing to do. Saying yes feels productive. It feels disciplined. It feels like you are trying. But over time, something strange happens. The more you take on, the harder it gets to do anything well. Your energy gets spread thin, your attention fractures, and even though you are busy all the time, real progress slows down. That's because busyness and effectiveness are not the same thing. There is a book that helped me understand why this keeps happening. It's called Essentialism, and the core idea is simple. When everything feels important, nothing actually is. The book breaks this down into 3 principles that make focus feel lighter instead of exhausting. Principle 1. Not everything matters equally. Most people treat all tasks, goals, and opportunities like they deserve the same attention. They don't. Some things move your life forward a lot. Most things barely move it at all. But when everything feels important, it all competes for your time and energy. And that's where progress starts to slow down. The problem isn't effort. The problem is focus. When you spread your attention across too many things, nothing gets enough care to actually grow. You end up busy all the time, but never fully present anywhere. Essentialism starts with a simple shift. If everything feels important, nothing actually is. Progress doesn't come from doing more things. It comes from identifying the few things that matter most and letting the rest fade into the background. For example, think about your week. You sit down to work on something important, a long-term goal you actually care about. Then, an email comes in, a message, a small task that feels quick to handle. So you switch, and suddenly, the important thing is fighting for attention with things that don't really matter. Everything feels urgent, everything feels important, and nothing gets your full focus. This doesn't mean the other things are bad. It just means they are not essential right now. And until you are willing to make that distinction, everything will keep pulling at you equally. Once you understand that not everything matters equally, the next question becomes obvious. How do you decide what actually deserves your attention? And this is where most people struggle. Principle 2. You have to choose on purpose. Most people don't decide what matters. They let urgency decide for them. Whatever shows up first, whatever feels loudest, whatever other people ask for. Saying yes feels easy. It avoids discomfort. It avoids explanation. It avoids feeling selfish. So yes becomes the default. But when you don't choose on purpose, everything else chooses for you. Your time, your energy, your attention. They all get spent reacting instead of building. Essentialism makes this clear. If you don't decide what matters, everything will feel important by default. Focus doesn't happen by accident. It only happens when you decide ahead of time what deserves your energy. For example, think about how often you say yes without really thinking. An extra responsibility, a favor, another commitment. Not because it truly matters, but because saying no feels uncomfortable. Over time, those small yeses pile up, and suddenly the things that matter most have to compete for whatever energy is left. Choosing on purpose doesn't mean saying no to everything. It means being deliberate. If something clearly supports what matters right now, it's a yes. If it doesn't, it's a no. Not forever, but for now. Once you decide what actually matters, there's one more step most people skip. Principle 3. Protect what matters by removing the rest. Most people think progress comes from adding more habits, more systems, more effort. But once you've decided what actually matters, adding more is usually the wrong move because focus is fragile. And if you don't protect it, it gets eaten up by everything else. Essentialism flips the usual approach. Instead of asking, what else can I fit in? You ask, what can I remove so what matters most has room to grow? This is the part that feels uncomfortable because removing things means saying no. It means letting go of good options, not bad ones. But good options are often the most dangerous because they quietly drain your energy without feeling wrong. For example, imagine you finally decide what your top priority is right now, but you keep all your old commitments, extra projects, random obligations, constant distractions. Even though you chose what matters, it still has to fight for your attention. The moment you start removing what doesn't support that priority, something changes. You feel lighter, clearer. Not because life got easier, but because your energy stopped leaking everywhere. Elimination isn't about being harsh, it's about being honest. If something doesn't clearly support what matters most right now, it's pulling you away from it. When you remove the non-essential, focus becomes easier, decisions become lighter, and progress stops feeling forced. When you put all three principles together, something shifts. Progress stops being about doing more. It becomes about choosing what actually matters and protecting it. You stop treating everything like it deserves your energy. You decide what matters most and you remove what gets in the way. That's how focus stops feeling exhausting and starts feeling intentional. Not because life gets simpler overnight, but because your attention finally has a direction. And if the hardest part of focus for you isn't knowing what matters, but making decisions when you don't feel sure yet, I break that down in this video. Remember, the path is yours to walk. And as always, I'm in your corner, rooting for you.